Thank you very much. And you brought us a little closer to talking about what is quality education to Amy, so I appreciate the conversation. Okay, CSU?
Thank you. Senator Liu, Senator Block, it's a pleasure to be here today to discuss the opportunity of higher education state policymakers working on goals for the institutions. CSU has long had goals and outcome measures to improve the results we have. We have our graduation initiative and other initiatives that I will be speaking about. As far as accountability, we have our voluntary system of accountability in College Portrait. We welcome this chance to find an outcome-based approach with new state goals through SB 195 and reporting measures enacted in the state budget to achieve our common goals. I believe you received a handout of slides. To put into context the CSU, to review our mission, we provide undergraduate and graduate level education, applied educational programs and research. We have approximately 437,000 students at the CSU in our undergraduate and graduate programs. We serve the state and regional needs where our campus is located. Graduates are ready for work and a career with applied experiences. In the packet I have given you, on slides 1 through 11, I give some context of the CSU. Slide 1 shows 10 years of freshman classes and transfer classes. And you could see transfers come in a little, about 53% of the students over the years have come in. You'll notice a few dips in the transfer students. Those in the depths of the recession, we had several spring semesters where we did not open for enrollment because of budgets. Then we give a snapshot of all our students, a profile by ethnicity. And interestingly, one of the earlier speakers handed out a chart of California and the ethnic distribution. If you look at the ethnic distribution of our students, you will see it mirrors very closely the state of California. And it's the reason I've included 10 years is because of the change in the CSU over the last 10 years. Also on slide 8, you will see our Pell recipients. As with the UC, it's been increasing each year. Currently, for our undergraduate students, 50% are Pell recipients. But even more interestingly, of those that graduate from the CSU, 52% receive Pell grants. So it's actually higher on those that graduated. I also included 2 other charts because it speaks to accountability measures. It talks about students entering the CSU, the numbers that come in needing remediation over the last 10 years for both math and English. Progress has been made, but as can be seen, much more progress needs to be made. So if we, in summary on the tables, 53% of our new students are transfer students. 46% of all of CSU students come from California's community colleges. Throughout the 10 years, we consistently have over 60% of our students at the junior and senior level, and about 1/3 at the lower division, freshmen and sophomores. Currently, it is 67% juniors and seniors and 33% freshmen and sophomores. Ethnicity mirrors the state and is increasing each year. 39% are underrepresented minority groups. When we look at programs in the CSU, we have been working on student success programs for a number of years. On slide 12, I point out the major initiatives in the CSU. The graduation initiative began in 2009, and the goal was to improve graduation rates by 6 percentage points for undergraduate students. SB 1440 was signed into law in September of 2010, and we have been working with the community colleges to make transfer a more effective and efficient process for students so that they need fewer credit hours to graduate. And we know if we bring down the number of credit hours, we will bring up the number of students that actually graduate. Our Board of Trustees incorporated an early start program in May of 2009. We will be reporting to our Board of Trustees next month on a progress report on that program. To date, we have 2 summers under our belt with mathematics, and we will be starting with the full English implementation this summer. And we've been working on reducing bottlenecks so that students can graduate in a more timely manner, and we've been working on that for approximately the last year to 18 months. On the next slide, you see a snapshot of the whole process. The reason I think it's important is for the work we do for pre-collegiate students. Our 11th grade early assessment program is a national model. It will be now used by Smarter, Balance, and Achieve, where we test 11th graders for college readiness in math and English. And what is unique about this program, it isn't just saying to a student, you're math ready or English ready for college. It says to students, if you're not, you might be close, but you're not ready yet, what you must do to be ready. And we have a program laid out in the 12th grade. And if those students follow the program, they are not retested, but they come in math or English ready. Now we put in the early start program. And we also have halfway through the associate degrees for transfer. Our graduation initiative is not just the CSU program. We have joined with national programs or associations, EdTrust and the National Association of Systems Heads, to partner in the graduation initiative. And we hopefully will reach our target of raising graduation rates from 46 to 54% by 2015. And I would hasten to point out that Chancellor White announced in his State of the University address in January that we will, as this one finishes in 2015, we will set a new one in place or continuation in place to raise graduation rates by another 10% to 60% within 10 years. So this is not a program that is finishing. This is a continuum of raising graduation rates. But student success, right, permeates the organization. All the programs we put in always have in mind improving student success. We report annually on our student success measures. Our graduation initiative was reported to the Board of Trustees this past January on 4th year persistence rates. You will see on slide 18, our funnel that shows the freshmen that entered in 2009, the 49,000, how many will need to graduate in 2015 to reach the goal and where we stand today with 4th year persistence rates. And it appears that we are on target to reach our goal. Then there is the systems of accountability, the voluntary system of accountability and College Portrait. These are national endeavors that the CSU has been taking part on. They begin on slide 19, where we give the example of what is posted on the CSU's website, and we picked one campus for the College Portrait, and that was Fresno, where you will have information on that campus. When we look at accountability, we are eager to partner with the state in setting goals so that we can meet these goals. Also, the systems are different, and we should be cognizant of the master plan and the goals of the system. But the goals in an accountability program must be ongoing and they must be consistent to be effective. And we should focus on outcomes and not inputs. If we focus on inputs, we ignore the uniqueness of the system. Also, it does not allow for flexibility in responding to changes inherent in education, and it discourages innovation and creativity. Moving ahead, we wish to work with you in developing 195 and the goals of 195. In conclusion, Chancellor White, in his State of the University address at the last board meeting, said, if California's universities are to produce the 1 million additional graduates needed in the workforce by 2025, then California State University will have to play a central role. The CSU produces 55% of the state's college graduates. We are doing this. One of our major points is to improve graduation rates so we're not just churning students, but the students that come, a higher percentage will graduate so that we will have seats for additional students. I thank you for being allowed to be here today to present the CSU story, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now the community colleges.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, Chairs Liu and Block. My name is Patrick Perry. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Technology, Research, and Information Systems for the Community College's Chancellor's Office. I wanted to start it off by saying I think you will find what the community colleges have been doing in the past couple of years very much aligns with the issues brought forth today and with the accountability efforts that are outlined in SB 195. The community colleges have a long history of accountability reporting in the state, going back all the way to the mid-1990s with Partnership for Excellence, the ARC report. The Community Colleges Student Success Task Force called for an update to our accountability report, and subsequently the Chancellor's Office rolled out the scorecard, which made its debut last March. You have a handout that gives an outline of that and also the screenshots of that. Hopefully you've seen the scorecard. The scorecard was designed with multiple layers of reporting for multiple audiences in mind. The State of the System report, which was just released, is the very highest level aggregation of this report. It's designed for the Board of Governors, policymakers, the general public, the press. The scorecard itself is a web-based tool. It breaks it down by campus, also broken down by primary demography and level of preparation upon entry, whether the student comes to us fully prepared for college or needs remediation. The Chancellor's Office Data Mart allows for a finer query tool that allows researchers to gain access to this data. And then finally, the data on demand layer, which is only available to campuses. It gives the campuses back unit records necessary to create all the metrics in the scorecard so that they can do a lot more local program evaluation with this data. So hopefully we've built this high to low continuing improvement data feedback cycle with this report. Local boards of trustees are required to interact with this report every year, so they are the primary target of accountability, the first level here. A month after releasing the scorecard, the Chancellor's Office released another web-based accountability tool called Salary Surfer, and you also have a handout in there that shows screenshots. Salary Surfer shows the wage outcomes for student graduates in California community college programs. And we're actually one of but a handful of states and systems in this nation that show wage outcomes for our students. We do this with a data match from the State Employment Development Department. We actually send them our graduates, and they send us back the quarterly wage records of those students. And we cut them at 2 years before, 2 years after, and 5 years after earning their degree and show that publicly. Both the scorecard and the Salary Surfer have a considerable alignment with SB 195. Both have been held up nationally as ideal accountability and public disclosure models. As called out in SB 195, we are publicly displaying participation rates, key momentum points such as 3-term persistence, what percentage of students make it halfway to a degree, 30-unit persistence rate, graduation and transfer rates, completion of remedial sequences, which is a really important thing for community colleges because it's probably the biggest hindrance to getting students across the finish line. Program completion rates for students in both CTE pathways and non-credit degree pathways. Those are the set of metrics in the scorecard. All of these are disaggregated by race and ethnicity, by gender, by age group, so this also doubles as our equity scorecard. And as I mentioned before, whether the student arrived prepared or needing remediation, which becomes very enlightening for folks. As to evaluating alignment with workforce, the next iteration of Salary Surfer will likely show data that show the movement of students at those 3 time points between industries of employment. So where were they working before they got their degree, where were they working in what industries 2 years and 5 years after? We have that data from the EDD information. We believe that the combination of showing industry movement and wage outcomes is both at a system level and by a campus level is probably the single best indicator we have available to us to show degree alignment with workforce needs. As to goals, the proposed trailer bill language pertains to community colleges furthering the efforts by requiring segment and district goals for the scorecard metrics, and we have no problem with that. In fact, we've been working on that. Both the Chancellor's Office and our System Consultation Council have developed a proposed set of goals that will be presented to the Board of Governors here in a few weeks in March for their approval. Within that goal-setting framework, alongside with the scorecard metrics and goals related to scorecard metrics, we added a number of specific metrics and targets for student equity and completion rates, the percentage of students who are attending with an approved education plan, because that is a big initiative for us, average number of FTES generated per student, and also an efficiency metric, the number of FTES spent per completion outcome, designed to show effective use of our resources. In the past few years, we've implemented a large number of both access and success initiatives in the system, and hopefully the scorecard will be the main instrument of measuring all of these. These include a 100-unit cap on priority registration, curricular prioritization for degree seekers, limits on course repeatability, having students declare a program of study within a year of entrance, early remediation, providing a system of common assessment and multiple measures placement, which was a bill passed by Senator Block. An online education initiative designed to both solve bottlenecks for students trying to get courses and also improve course success rates in online courses. Creating very good education planning tools, academic requirements to continue receiving BOG waivers, and of course associate degrees for transfer, which is a biggie that should help the transfer process and reduce the number of units required to get across the finish line. And then finally, the creation of a California Community Colleges Student Success Institute, which is a competitive national grant that we won from the Kresge Foundation and would be sustained by the proposed funding and resources in the 14-15 budget, designed specifically just to improve student success, promulgate best practices, visit campuses that are having various different accreditation, student performance, compliance, and fiscal health issues. So given these reform efforts and the focus on completion and access we have, our ability to track and monitor progress within the system and beyond, both to 4-year segments and into the workforce, and the creation of these data feedback systems that can be used locally, we feel that our system is well positioned to contribute to the needs of the state, and also what we think is really the alpha goal, which is to have future generations of Californians have a higher percentage of degrees and credentials. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Yeah, I just have one observation and question, I guess. It's clear that all the segments have been doing great work recently and working toward a lot of the goals. I would call them the kind of halfway goals we've been establishing. But the overarching goal, it seems to me, as what was presented at the very beginning of today's very good panel discussion by California Competes, and PPIC, I think, agrees, that we need about 60 to 100,000 more bachelor's degrees per year for at least the next 10 years to just keep up in the worldwide marketplace. Now, if CSU goes from 50% to 60% to 70%, given that only CSU and UC are providing these bachelor's degrees, I'm not a mathematician, but it seems to me that there's no way, if you were 100% at CSU, we'd be able to put out 60 to 100,000 more bachelor's degrees per year. So what do we do?
Well, one answer would be we need a greater investment in higher education so that we can admit more students. but certainly the demand is there. This year to date, we've taken in over 800,000 applications. So students want to come to the university, but with the deep recession, we've been holding down, as you could tell from one of my charts. Several years we didn't open in the spring, and we kept out quite a few transfer students that wanted to come. But it is a challenge. I mean, I agree with you.
So I agree too. Funding is part of the issue. We did not, UC did not, in contrast to CSU, curtail any of our undergraduate enrollments during this time. So we are, quote, way over enrolled for funding level, or our funding level per student has gone down, whichever way you want to talk about it.
But we're trying to, actually, Amy, we're trying to not base our funding on just, seats.
Just seats?
Just on enrollment.
Right. So our graduation rates are quite good, and if we look at freshmen and do graduation term by term, the highest part of the bar is exactly at 4 years, and then it tails off. The part that we need to work on is the students who leave and don't go to another UC or another university, and those are in the first year or two, and we have identified campuses where that happens a lot more, because that puts a ceiling on how much graduation you can have.
Well, I think
I'm suggesting
So we want more throughput.
Even if all those students
Yeah.
stayed, you wouldn't come close to the million more bachelor's
No,
degrees.
we do have capacity with more funding to enroll more students for some of the campuses. Some of the campuses are tapped out based on space and dorms and all. But we do have some capacity, and I think partnering more with community college and transfer function is another possibility, and CSU certainly, if their initiatives work, that will substantially increase what happens. I think we also need to engage the privates in this, because that's the other segment that helps to provide our bachelor's degrees.
Yeah, I'm afraid the privates that are engaging are not the good nonprofit privates, but are the proprietary institutions that
That's
are
true.
scooping up student
And
and
I
tax
didn't mean
dollars
those, not right.
without productivity.
I agree.
This is not to fault the systems. You're all doing great. It's frankly to put the finger back at us that we are not providing the resources, or there's something missing here, because we're not going to get to the numbers we need to get to. What do community colleges say?
I mean, I certainly would agree that there's a capacity issue in play here. One of the things we've seen as far as transfer students, as budgets have declined, I mean, these are our two biggest transfer partners. Out-of-state institutions are coming in, and they are actively recruiting community college students to transfer. When we had a downturn, especially in CSU, the biggest winners were Arizona State, Northern Arizona, Nevada, Las Vegas, UNR, places like that. So that's a really bad thing, because now we're spending state funds getting students through the first 2 years, and it's the other state that is benefiting from them. Those students are probably staying there.
we've heard that. It's a long time. This has been going on for a long time. So I really appreciate the conversation. It's just the beginning, again, of another, a continuation of this conversation about accountability. I am glad you're at the table and are willing to be willing participants to see if we can't meet our goal, workforce goals, economic goals for the next generation of young people that have to fill our shoes. And it's a very important conversation to have, and I appreciate your being here today just to catch us up about what you have been doing. But I think there is more room for us to take a look at what others are doing, and perhaps, jiggling it around and making sure that we address the needs, the state needs of having more output, and how do we get there together. Okay?
I think so. I also think the new togetherness of the three segment leaders and the provosts are going to do it too. We have a date soon. That's an opportunity for us also to talk about and count up how far can we get depending on how we do ourselves, where do we have room, and those things. And I think that should be part of our agenda to look at, to analyze for ourselves what do we think we can contribute.
So you guys are doing it by, without statute. You're coordinating council in your future. State participation in this conversation. What do you think? You can solve it yourself, or you need more direction?
So I'll speak first anyway. My view is that we should be working on it ourselves. And we should also look to the state as a partner and a leader and a pusher and all that. And as you may remember from last year, I believe that if we are going to have some sort of statewide perspective, it needs to include K-12 or P on, because some of the challenges, particularly when you look at equity issues, they start way before the community college or UC
Correct.
or the CSU. And we're not going to achieve what we need to achieve for a state if we don't do better with the pipeline from starting in K-12 system. So for me, we need a really big state picture.
Could I see a show of hands from the three segments here? How many of you think we should have a coordinating council? Raise your hand, please. So Ms. Snyder, this is kind of the issue here.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
It's cutting the chase. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Are we done, or is there public comment?
Okay, now is the time for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the committees? Please come forward. State your name and your organization, your concern, briefly. Thank you. Come fill the chairs up here. Let's.
Good morning. Senator Liu, Senator Block, staff. David Bala Hawkins represents the Community College Independence Faculty Union, also the State University Employees Union. A few very brief observations. As someone who worked with the California Post-Secondary Education Commission for close to 20 years, I think that we have a valuable void now that needs to be filled. I felt that they were very collaborative with both the segments and the stakeholders, valuable input and research, and I think it's a major loss that we don't have the commission anymore. Regarding the discussion about negative consequences for performance, we would be opposed to a penalty of less money. However, we would support targeted funding. One of the issues that have been discussed on all of the years of accountability measures from D.D. Alpert on has been the issue that we keep focusing on outcomes. What we aren't focusing on is the input. So despite the fact if outcomes are good or not, we aren't really looking at how the money's actually being spent. And it would be our position that we need to look at how the money's spent as well as what the outcomes are. And unfortunately, without looking at that, we don't know what good practices are and what actually works. So we would be in favor of having accountability on both ends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm Suresh Wadhwa. I'm a professor at Sacramento State. I teach electrical engineering and computer engineering there. I've been there for 28 years. And I've noticed that the funding has dropped in our programs steadily. We are doing more and as much as we can, but the main problem with us is that lack of funding and reduction. CSU noticed a $1 billion reduction during the recession, and some of it needs to be restored. Our graduation rate is delayed because the students cannot get proper courses. My program is highly structured, and most of the STEM fields are highly structured. If they don't have the proper prerequisites, the students have loans, grants that they must be full-time. They take courses that will not count towards graduation. Right. And they have to take extra courses, and that delays the graduation. I hope that the state will prioritize the funding, especially in the STEM fields, which is needed. And our students are getting very, very good jobs. They stay in this area and in California.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's I'm Professor Joseph Palermo. I'm in the History Department at Cal State Sacramento. And I just came down here as a member of the California Faculty Association as well. And I would just urge the committee, Senator Lieu, Senator Block, to please consider the budget in the context of the savage and ill-advised cuts that took place in the last 10 years to our system, where I was furloughed for the better part of a year, and the students were really victimized by fewer course offerings, and that these so-called bottlenecks or outcomes, and I think a lot of this could be settled if we looked at the CSU and its funding levels maybe 20 or 25 years ago, instead of looking at states like Tennessee or Ohio or Florida and seeing what they're up to, because California was a leader in public higher education in this country. And I think we should have the confidence to look at our own record in the past of excellence and maintain quality and try not to, we're under great deal of pressure with the assessments. The faculty is getting beat up a lot, but we have more part-timers than ever before, and they're doing as good as well, as well as they can. But we need more tenure-line professors who are there. It's shown that the more tenured professors at the colleges help with advising, and they're able to move the students through to graduate quicker. If that's one of the goals, we need more full-time faculty.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm Professor Emmanuel Gale, California State University, Sacramento. I have a personal historical perspective that few of my colleagues have. I came in August of 1967. I am concluding my 47th year teaching at Sacramento State, and I plan to continue teaching to my 100th birthday. I'm technically retired, but I'm teaching half-time. I teach social policy, social welfare policy and services, health policy and services, and aging policy and services, stuff which is changing every day. And that's why I'm particularly concerned about the assaults that have taken place on higher education and also on K through 12. Teachers were laid off as a result of the cuts. And in Sacramento City School District just recently is closing 8 schools in the most deprived neighborhoods where services are desperately needed. My major concern is about supporting higher education, supporting K through 12 as well. And the importance of it is you're concerned about creating educated population that are going to have jobs. One of the major concerns I have is who is going to work on planning to create the jobs here in California rather than exporting the jobs overseas to low-wage countries. I'll give you an example of the negative effect just in Sacramento County. When the budget cuts took place 3 years ago, Sacramento County closed 8 health centers, 7 health centers, only maintained 1 on Broadway in Stockton. The mental health services were eliminated. In-home supportive services were dramatically cut back. Adult day health centers were closed. And 49 child protective service workers were laid off. Now, this is the net result of a thoughtless chopping, slashing, and burning of healthcare, education, and human services. And I urge you to push very hard for developing the kind of master planning that's necessary to expand education, K through 12, and higher education. And one final comment. You're concerned about creating graduates, people who will be professionals, who will have skills and so on to work 20 years from now. One of the issues that's got to be thought about from the legislative point of view is how do you create the jobs here in the state of California rather than those jobs being exported? Because that is a problem. And that will be a problem unless we create the kind of economy where jobs are created here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Becky Asami. I'm a grad student at CSU Fresno. I want to thank you all for having us here today. A lot of the points that I wanted to make were already said, and I don't want to repeat too many of the points too much. But I want to point out, I keep hearing things about performance measures on graduating and how come students aren't graduating in 4 years. How come students are not able to get out as quickly as they'd like to? It's because we don't have enough classes. I know firsthand because I am a student and have been a student in the CSU for a long time. There just aren't enough classes. There's not enough student services. There isn't enough faculty for us. So I want to take this moment to encourage you to increase funding to the CSU more than what Governor Brown has stated. We really need the funding, and if you want students to graduate on time and to do well while they're in school, that's the best way to do it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Chair, Jonathan Lightman from the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges. I want to thank you very much for holding this very important hearing today, and particularly the discussion on equity in higher education. On that point, the Faculty Association is very concerned about the governor's proposal to flex 25% of the budget for EOPS, CalWORKs, and basic skills. We have tremendous data that shows the merits of these programs, and in the common desire to see low-income students succeed in college, what we don't want to have is for one group of vulnerable students to be fighting another group of vulnerable students at the local trustee level for precious resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Erica Romero with the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. We were very heartened to see Dr. Ben-Simon here talking about equity. At HUCU, we're actually going to bring together the Hispanic serving institutions in April. They're the ones who educate the vast majority of Latino students to talk exactly about what we mean about Latino student success, how we define it, what performance metrics we think are important, and how we also help our students through remediation, because unfortunately a vast majority of our students need remediation. And how can we get them through that process quicker so that they're graduating? And we'll look forward to discussing that with you and talking to Kathleen and your staff about what that means to us and how we define it for Latino students. But as part of that discussion, I don't think it's understated that we need to have the discussion about funding, because we are talking about a student population that is first-generation low income. And so we need to make sure that not only do they have the classes they need, but that they have the support services that wrap around them so that they can get through the system. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Julia Norton. I'm a professor of statistics at California State University, East Bay. I've come up this morning. I'm retired, actually. This is my last quarter of service to the state of California. I've been there for 40 years. I suffered through the last 10 years of budget cuts. I came from Alabama. You're on track to compete with the state I left. Funding for the CSU is essential in building the middle class. I have watched my population change. I'm proud of it. The students now are more students of color than when I started. I send students out to the biotech industry, pharmaceutical companies, financial companies in the Bay Area and in the state. The CSU needs more funds. I won't benefit, but my community will, and your community will. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Senator Liu, Senator Marty Block. My name is Eric Paredes. I am a first-generation college student at California State University, Chico, majoring in political science. Over the years, the CSU system has faced major cuts. One of the many effects that these cuts have made are that there are fewer classes being offered for my department and for most of the departments at my campus. And it has made it harder to graduate on time. I would like to ask to please take into consideration an increase in funding for the CSU when discussing accountability measures. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much for your time this morning. It's a good conversation, and we look forward to more. Thank you. Thank you.